All right, so little TBA Publix PSA, a little PSA for everybody.
TBM PSA.
Yeah, TBM PSA. So we were originally slated to do Billy Strings and
Sound of
Sound of
Metal.
Metal, but obviously, as a lot of you guys have probably seen, a hurricane just rampaged through the United States, and unfortunately, one of the states that it hit and devastated was North Carolina. Areas of North Carolina, and Trey obviously lives in Asheville, North Carolina currently, and Asheville is in really, really bad shape. So he flew back to Charlotte to yesterday to head down to Asheville, get his dog, get his belongings, and try to help out any way that he could. So he's obviously not recording with us. So we have pivoted, and we'll tell you the album and the movie in a second. But in the meantime, we just want to tell you guys, keep an eye out for our social media and Trey's social media. If you guys follow him, we'll try to post avenues where you can help those affected by the hurricane, not only in North Carolina, but anywhere where it kind of left a huge impact. And obviously, our hearts go out to all those people. We know it's difficult, and this is something that I think shocked a lot of people, and they were not prepared for the weight of that hurricane and the power that it had, and it certainly left its effects. So anything we can do to help those people, we will. Any information we can share, we will. And anything you guys can do to help, feel free to reach out to us. We'll try to find a way to get it to Trey or anybody there. Or if you want to do it with your own means, by all means, do that, of course. Anything else you want to say on that matter, Anthony?
I mean, we'll talk more when Trey gets to come back on. But I mean, weather, hurricanes, tornadoes, these things, affect communities. They affect cultures, and it's tragic and it's devastating. But like, out of these types of situation comes the heartbeat of a community. So it's really special to see everybody already pulling together, and that will continue to happen. And like Blake was saying, any way that we can help spread the word or share resources or information, we will absolutely be doing that. So yeah, our hearts go out to everybody, and we'll see where this leads.
For sure. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome or welcome back. It's Totally Biased Music. Today, we did a last minute pivot. So we have pivoted to Shaboozey's album, Where I've Been Isn't Where I'm Going, and MaXXXine, which I know Anthony has been wanting me to watch for a very long time, and that will surely be a lively discussion. The Shaboozey album was perfect timing because I actually saw Shaboozey last night at Cervantes in Denver. And we'll touch more on the show later, but I got to say, Cervantes, sick venue. My first time being there, very tiny, very intimate. And yeah, in terms of the album, I've been running this album. It's short, so this probably won't be a super long episode for us. But I have been listening to this album a lot this year, and I'm sure Shaboozey is probably going to be in my top artists at the end of the year. But it's only 12 tracks, 37 minutes long. For those of you that don't know, Shaboozey is a Nigerian country artist. Actually, he was born and raised in Virginia, but he is Nigerian. And I learned today that his stage name actually came from people mispronouncing his last name because his last name is very Nigerian. But yeah, I really, really like this album. There's a lot of things on it that I really enjoy. And I think that, this is I'm hoping that this is his breakout moment based on the music itself, but also the show he put on last night was phenomenal. And it was so great to see him perform. And he sounds just as good live as he does on the record, which is really impressive. So I think it's, he's kind of a shining light in the country world for me right now. So yeah, what did you think, Anthony? This is your first listen all the way through, right?
Definitely is my first listen, but I got a question for you before we go deeper, which is like, how did Shaboozey get on your radar? Because I don't listen to the radio, at least not if I can consciously choose to. But I could imagine that these songs could get a lot of radio airplay, as far as like exposure with other folks. And I think, well, I don't know for certain, but I think he featured it on Beyonce's country album.
Yep, he did.
But yeah, how did he come across your radar? Because you obviously exposed me to Shaboozey.
Yeah, so it's actually really funny. Obviously, a bar song, "Tipsy," is like his single right now that's blowing the fuck up. But like many, many months ago, before this album had come out, he had posted a live version of this where he's like in a bar in Nashville or something. And it came across my Twitter feed, and someone said, so good, even the racists can't deny it because he's a black artist. And I was like, what is this? And I listened to it, and that song is like, it's just a bop, and it very is like, it's very much a single from an
Right.
album, and it's very kind of poppy. But that song kind of hooked me in, and then his album came out shortly after that. I was like, fuck it, if I like this song, I'll probably like the rest of it. So that's kind of where just a random occurrence on the Twitter feed.
Gotcha. Well, on my first listen, well, you had brought two songs. You brought the bar song, and then I think it was "Steal Her From Me," maybe as another Ride or Die. So, like, I had already had some taste of what this could be. So when we pivoted, I think it was yesterday, to listen to this, I was like, all right, I'm in. I'm interested, I guess is probably the best way to put it. But I had a good time listening to it. There's parts of the album that I could see maybe if it was done a little bit differently, I would have liked. But overall, I had a really good time listening to it. I think the length is ideal for this because you don't get a lot. I mean, I don't know if it's fair to say this is like a fusion record, because there are hip hop influences throughout this album. There's obviously a lot of country and a lot of country production around this type of album, a lot of storytelling, a lot of darkness, I think, in this album too.
Yeah.
But would you call it a fusion kind of record? If you had to label it.
His previous projects were more much more of a fusion. I think he really leaned into the country here, and I like it. I would consider it a country record. Apart from to me, really, Drink Don't Need No Mix, that's kind of like a hip hop song, but apart from that, it's very country, so I wouldn't really even consider it a fusion album, to be completely honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would agree. The country angle is really strong in this, and seeing that he grew up in Virginia, because at first listen, I can't help but get those feelings that I had with Post Malone, where I'm like, okay, so what is there? Are they capitalizing on the genre? But no, I feel like he's lived a lot of this, and I think it really does come out through the lyrics in a lot of the songs. So very excited to talk about it. And I could imagine, what emotions did you get when you were like, all right, well, now I get the chance to bring Shaboozey, right? But it would at some point soon. It was on the way.
Yeah, it was on the way. Here's the thing. I like that it came at the time that it did, in the sense that the last minute pivot allowed us to do this, because I think in any other circumstance, right, with it being such a short album and with us having done a country album pretty recently, I don't think I would have brought it just, genuinely. I would have stuck with hip hop or whatever it was. But I think the last minute pivot was like, oh, this is the perfect chance, just to bring it on. And I don't know if Trey would particularly like this album. I don't know. I mean, maybe he would. I think there's aspects of it that he would like. So I don't know. I think it works better for this type of episode. But I was really excited because, like I said, I'm a huge fan of this record. And I will say, before we get into top songs, we talked about this on the Post Malone episode, where there's an American Dad episode where Roger tries to be a country artist, and Haley tells him you have to have soul, you have to have real emotion. And I think Shaboozey, what he does best is that emotion. There's a lot of raw emotion in this album, and it feels like East of Massanutten is such a raw emotional song, which he played last night, by the way. And I think his emotion just really shines in his life and kind of his experiences. So it's very special country music to me because it seems genuine and it seems real and heartfelt. And I don't think he's set out to create an album of, stadium hits that he can go play at Broncos Stadium, right? I think he wanted to make music that was genuine to him. And it's simplistic in a lot of ways. I think the music itself is pretty simplistic, but the lyrics are not. They're deep and they're genuine.
Right.
So that I really, really liked about this album.
Beautiful.
But let's get into top tracks. You can lead us off. What do you got?
All right. So for my top tracks, I will start at number 3. It's the last track on the album, Finally Over. I really, really enjoyed the lyrics behind this song, and I would like to know more. So, there's a line in this song where he talks about going viral or not having to go viral again or something along those lines. So was there a viral moment for Shaboozey? So I have a lot of questions if you can't tell
Yeah.
about Shaboozey. I mean, I'm genuinely curious, right? But like this song is such a ego shedding where he's like, if it's all over, it's okay. I'm okay if it's all over, right?
Right.
And it has a upbeat vibe to it, so I really like this track in itself. But it definitely made me think, like, was there a moment, like a coming out moment for Shaboozey, or is this the coming out moment for Shaboozey? Because I would
I
bank on this
think
album being something like that.
to me, so the lyric is, well, I spend my final days trying to chase a dollar. I can't sell my soul again for another viral moment.
Right. Or maybe
And
he's just talking theoretically.
yeah, and I think like after that Beyonce album, he really blew up. Like it skyrocketed his popularity, which is, to Beyonce's credit, is super tight that she put him on. But I'm assuming that's what he's referring to. Is just that initial blow
Featuring
up
in
after, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I like that song, and I like it again. Closing out the album feels really good. Second track is actually right before Finally Over, Steal Her From Me. I that I mean, just a relationship. There's a lot of relationship songs laced throughout this album, which I really appreciate, because I mean that's real experiences that a lot of people have had, a lot of us have had. So Steal Her From Me, I had to include on there, and probably because that's the song I have spent the most time with on this album.
Yeah.
I probably listened to it. I definitely listened to the album twice. But obviously Steal Her From Me being featured, as a Ride or Die in the past, it felt familiar to me, and I resonated with it a lot. So I had to include that. And the number one track I had on here is the track with Noah Cyrus.
Really?
Song, yeah. I mean, I think there's
My Fault is the name.
My Fault, yeah. So Shaboozey's voice, to me, I think can take some getting used to in this kind of format. He has a very deep voice, or a very baritone like voice, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't for me on this album. But that track blended with Noah Cyrus's vocals really fits so nice. Like, she complements his voice so well.
Right.
And I think that is what sticks out to me in that song. Again, another relationship centric kind of lyrics throughout this duet, but like there's a lot of heartache and there's a lot of emotion in his voice. But again, I think it blends so well with Noah's vocals, which I don't know a lot about Noah Cyrus. I don't know any of her music really, but it feels good. Like I said, that song, the last half of this album, or at least My Fault, Steal It From Me, Finally Over, towards the end, really started to shine light on what this project really is. Definitely honorable mention with East of Massanutten, which, where is that? Is that in Virginia?
It's in Virginia.
Is there a river in Virginia? Okay.
Yeah.
Because like what a funny name for a river, but also what is the line in that song? Like, ain't nothing for me east of Massanutten.
Yeah, east of Massanutten, there's nothing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, it's just a good wordplay there. Shaboozey to me comes off as a really creative human, and I really am excited to hear about the show, because that I think will really showcase like the artistic side of a person like him. But to put out something like this, it is really well written. Again, his voice is the only thing that kind of really throws me off when it comes to some of the songs. But once you realize that is just him, you accept it for what it is. And I think that's where it really caught on towards the end of the album. But yeah, I had a really good time with this.
Nice. That's good to know. And yeah, he has a very unique voice, right? Like he doesn't sound like anybody else to me. And you're right. His voice is very deep. And I was kind of hooked like immediately upon hearing it. I think that's one of my favorite things about him. Whereas for you, you said it's kind of hit or miss. Like for me, that's what really drew me in, because the music itself, like I said, and I don't want to discredit like the guitar playing and the instrumentation, but it doesn't sound complicated, right? It's pretty straightforward music, and
formulaic country music,
right? But his lyrics and his voice are really what drew me in. So for mine, this song to me does not get enough love. But my number 3 is Vegas, and I love the music in Vegas, but I'll read the lyrics of the chorus for those who don't go listen to the album. But it's lived a lot of life. My biggest mistake is leaving my town with a pretty lady, shredded my heart like a day old paper, ran me wild and drove me crazy. Low vibrations, familiar faces, Hollywood of all the goddamn places. Been so long, I need a vacation. Lived my life like it was one big Vegas. And I just love that chorus. And the rest of the song is really just about like living your life like pedal to the fucking metal and it like catching up to you, right? Like living your life like one big Vegas and then realizing like this was a mistake. I should not have done this. I just really like that message, and I really love the way that he sings the chorus, and it's just got a nice sound to it. And I love Las Vegas, man. It's my favorite shit town in the world. So like I had to throw it on there. Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah.
So then number 2 for me, these two are really, really close for me. So number 2 is Steal Her From Me. And for those of you that don't know and haven't listened to this song, this is the initial song after Bar Song that really sucked me in, that really pulled me in. I played it over and over and over again, and I still do. But for those of you that haven't listened to it or don't want to listen to it, basically it's a story about Shaboozey stealing a girl from somebody and basically saying like, I stole her from him, but somebody's going to steal her from me. Like, that's just how it goes. And I love the lyrics. He says, because nothing lasts forever and mama raised me better. See, these girls belong to the streets. What goes around comes around and karma shall hunt you down. This town right here is full of thieves. So good. And so true, right? Because listen, those women ain't loyal. You know, if you're stealing her from a guy, she's on the prowl. She's looking for somebody else. And Shaboozey knows it. He's okay with it, you know? And I like that. I
want to say this on just relationships, okay? Because, like, relationships come and go, and people come into your life and people leave your life. And I think that there's a moral to this kind of song, which is, like, enjoy that relationship for as long as it's happening. You know, because people go through honeymoon phases and people go through moments of time where they're really stoked on a human, you know, but then again, life happens, you know, and people enter each other's lives and there's a novelty factor with that. So like whether stealing someone can be perceived as like her finding somebody else, right? Enjoy these relationships while you got them, because again, it's temporary. You know, life is temporary.
100%.
But it's a great song. I mean, it's a banger.
So good, and so much emotion in it too, you know?
Yeah.
And then my number 1 song for that same type of reason is East of MaXXXine. So East of MaXXXine, and he played it last night, and it was, oh man, it was so beautiful. And I really didn't take out my phone like at all. But when East of MaXXXine came on, I was like, I gotta at least take like a minute-long video of East of MaXXXine. So I had that, and but yeah, I just, man, there's so much emotion in this song, and it's so powerful. And there's a couple lines in here like the very beginning says, tell me why am I still running now for freedom, I guess, to my 40 acres running full speed ahead. And I love that reference to slavery and to 40 acres in that, you know, especially being from Virginia, right, where like I can't imagine the type of racist shit that he had to deal with growing up in Virginia, you know. And I just think
like 29. He's pretty young too.
Yeah, he is. But yeah, it's just it's a really thought-provoking song. In the second verse, he says, "Met a believer, had all kinds of plans, was drunk on ambition, no cars in his hand. But you can't beat the dealer, so grab what you can. If you wind up with nothing, then you're better off dead." And I love that. I just love that if you wind up with nothing, you're better off dead. You know, like what is the risk? To me, it's like a risk versus reward conversation that he's having, right? It's like, how much are you going to gamble with your success or your life? You know, if you end up with nothing, then what was it all for? And I just really, really love that song, man. A lot of emotion in it. I think that's like the prime example of you gotta you gotta experience some shit to be a good country artist. You know, you gotta go through some shit. You can't just be a run of the mill, you know, guy if you're gonna make good country music. It's not how it works.
Yeah, I think people can. My hope is that people can see through that shit. You know, where there's plenty of artists out there who can put lyrics into, you know, a stereotypical country song, but like that ingenuity, like that being disingenuous shines through, you know, or I guess I should say genuine, like being genuine can be perceived by a lot of people. People
Right.
will respond to that. And I think my hope is that he does get that recognition, from something like this. Cause I think this album it's a piece of art, it's something that I've not come across before. And I think overall has that kind of positive reflection out into the world.
Yeah.
But the line of "I'll pack me a little duffel," like that,
Yeah.
that's like that shit just is hilarious because like
It's so
it's
good.
not something someone would actually say, but
Right.
like it fits well into the song.
Yeah.
So again, the creativity in some of the lyrics I think does shine through.
Yeah. 100%. All right. Well, let's get into bottom tracks. What do you got for those?
All right, so no particular order here,
And Anthony, I swear to God, if East of Mass and Nothing's on there, you better just pretend it's not, because I'm not going to be okay with that.
It's
All
not.
right,
No,
all right.
I tried to honorably mention East of Matt and Nothing earlier, but no, it is not. It is not on my bottom. But Vegas is, and only for one of the verses in there, and it's because I feel like he tried. He threw a rap, segue in that track, and I was just like, oh, you didn't have to, but like maybe you did have to. I don't know. He's an artist, but that rap verse in Vegas kind of threw me off. I think it's towards the second half of the song, just too fast for a track like that. So Vegas is on there. Don't drink, don't need no mix is definitely on there for me.
That's a hip hop song for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it was just too trap country for me. So I had to throw it on there. Yeah, I wrote. I saw what he was trying to do, but it just doesn't work for me. Also, I had like, I don't know the song Old Town Road that well, but it had that kind of like rhythm to it. To me, like a whistling rhythm to it, where I feel like those songs could be identical in a way, not in a bad way, but it just definitely did remind me of that. And the other bottom track for me, and it's really more so because of his voice in this track, is Annabelle. I like the lyrics of the song. Like I like the lyrics in the song. It's just delivery for that song doesn't work well with me. It felt like a pop country song.
Yeah.
But I think his voice is fucking campfire tracks. Like give me those 100%. Types of songs. Give me those heart-wrenching, emotional tracks that you're just drinking late night, just belting out, at the top of your lungs. But when you get too
poppy with it,
as Blake likes to say,
right? Or campy,
yeah, right. I will, it just throws me off, But I think the good songs on this album shine way more than those little moments that threw me off. But this is an album I think that you can grow with, If you've been listening to this for a summer, right? I mean, like you will look back on this summer probably as the summer of Shaboozey, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Fuck yeah. So what do you have for bottom tracks?
So I really don't have a lot. So I have Annabelle on there as well, simply for like the same reasons, right? It's a little too poppy for me. And it's not even that it's, I don't know. It's like the lyrics aren't really, and his voice doesn't sound like it, but it's, I don't know. It just the beat and the production. Yeah, it just sounds very, very poppy. And then look, I hate to put this on here because I'll tell you, last night when he played Drink Don't Need No Mix, that shit went the fuck off.
Yeah, and in a club full of people, right?
And the crowd was fucking with it. And we were all just like, everybody around us was just throwing the fuck down. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I got to put Drink Don't Need No Mix on there. It's just like, I think like if it were removed from the album, like if it were in an older project or if like this is all I knew from Shaboozey, I would like it. But being in this type, being sandwiched between Vegas and Steal Her From Me, it's like the worst spot for that song to exist,
Yeah. That's like a standalone single SoundCloud push that song on its own.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't need to be, I don't think, mixed in with this stuff.
No.
So. Yeah,
but that's that's really all I had. So before we get into rankings or anything, I do want to talk about the show. So
I want to hear about it.
He played
Cervantes, right?
Yep, Cervantes. So it was very, very small, very tightly packed. I also I spilled beer on a number of people walking to and from our spot because like everybody was so jam packed, and I'm carrying like beers
You,
filled
of
to the
all
brim.
people, how many waters you've given out to people as an ambassador? You're just leaking.
I was like trying to like be so, and at one point like I held beers over my head, and then I was dropping beers on people's heads. So then I was like down low trying to like skirt through, and I was spilling on people's shoes. It was like a lose. But Cervantes was very, very cool. Very cool venue, and he had an opener. Steinza was his name, was another country artist, and I went by and I bought a shirt from him because those smaller artists, like he was selling his own merch. I was like, I gotta hook homie up, and he was good. But yeah, Shaboozey, he played older songs, but he played obviously he played Vegas, he played Drink Don't Need No Mix, he played East of MaXXXine, which was the highlight. He played Bar Song twice, which that's what these artists do. That's what these smaller artists do. The first time I ever saw Post Malone, there was probably 10 people in the crowd, and he played White Iverson 3 times. So that's just what.
Okay, well, like how can you justify that, Blake? So like if you are Post Malone or if you're Shaboozey, like what's the thought process to say run it back?
Because
or run it back 3 times. Like that's crazy.
The crowd
I would
reaction.
beg for Tipper to play a song again. Like I would do anything for him to drop another drop of the track. But so go ahead. Sorry.
To me, like the crowd reaction for sure, right? And that song has. Look at the plays on his spot on that album. Every other one is like 20 million plays, whatever. Bar Song has 777 million plays. So like it's clearly what propelled him to fame. And honestly, like if the crowd is into it, then why not? I don't have a problem with it. Like I had a lot of fun when he ran it back. We were all like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it again, dude. And he was jumping in the crowd and getting super into it. So to me, it was fun. But I get the criticism.
Yeah, so like, does he play the entire song over again? Because oh, see, that's like I could get down with a moment of a song, and running it back and then dropping it again on him. But like then it just becomes a sing along at that point, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Did he pull the old let the crowd sing?
No, he was singing.
Okay.
He was still singing. And
Gotcha.
I will say, years ago when I went to the Watch the Throne tour in Atlanta, which was Jay-Z and Kanye, they played Brothers in Paris, which is not the actual name.
Yeah.
They played it twice, and it was fucking lit as shit. And this is a fun fact about me. I don't know if you know this, Anthony. The Brothers in Paris video was filmed at that show in Atlanta that I was at. And you can tell it is because there's a moment at the beginning of the video where he says, if Jay's not ready to leave and Ye's not ready to leave, there's only one thing left to do again, and then they just go back into it. And it was
Where was
sick.
that? Where was that show?
It was at whatever that big ass arena is in Atlanta. It's not
Basketball
Bridgestone.
arena?
Yeah, it's not Bridgestone because that's Nashville. But it was like I think the basketball stadium. I can't remember.
Did they have cars? Do you remember seeing cars like on display? I don't know what it's called, but like where the Hawks play.
Remember. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Dead and Company there. I just remember seeing like where the box seats are, like a vehicle or two that were just like on display. I don't know.
It's weird as fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I will say with the show last night, like crowd was a vibe. I was glad.
Packed
like
out?
it was packed, and the people there were nice. Obviously there were some people I pissed off by spilling beer on them, but other than that, like they were all really into it. And then I will say, man, I was heartbroken. He didn't play Steeler for me. And I really, really wanted to hear it live, and it really, really upset me. And I texted a friend of mine who also loves that song, and I was like, "Didn't happen, bro." Because he told me he was like, "Get a video of it if he plays it." But yeah, didn't happen.
Well,
so
how long was the set? Like an hour?
It was about a little over an hour.
Well, see, okay, now if he maybe doesn't play Bar Song twice,
He can fit it in there.
Exactly. These songs are not crazy long,
say that.
But like, okay, so now tell me, what is his stage presence like? Is he just singing? Is he playing any?
No,
instruments?
so there are songs where he just sings. There are songs where he sings and plays guitar, and he has a band with him. But like when he played East of MaXXXine, he picked up the guitar and played and sang. So it kind of goes back and forth.
Gotcha.
And yeah, he's very confident on stage. Like it seems like he was meant for this, like it feels very natural. Doesn't feel forced. He interacts with the crowd well. He had a bottle of whiskey in his hand. like at one point and was just like during bar song and just had the Jack Daniels and was dancing. So it was tight. You know, I think that like it exceeded my expectations. The tickets were like $30, man. And like being able to see a good show like that and be so close because it's such a small venue for someone who I guarantee you next time he comes back to Denver, it's going to be at Red Rocks. Like it's not going to be at Cervantes. So I thought that was really, really tight.
He's playing at the BJCC, you know, in November in Birmingham. So he's playing at the Legacy
really?
Arena. Yeah. And I don't know how much tickets are, but who knows? I mean, if I'm not doing anything, I think it's November 21st, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's worth seeing. But that's why I was curious to see what kind of draw he is, or what that environment's like, or what that production is like too.
Yeah.
Just because I have no concept of anything regarding Shaboozey.
Yeah, it was very simplistic, like production wise, right? It wasn't anything crazy. I mean, it's a country artist at a small venue, so I didn't expect anything crazy. But yeah, very, very cool. So
fun show.
But with that being said, let's get into rankings. So you want to guess Pitchfork's ranking? I couldn't find a Rolling Stone one.
Okay, Pitchfork's out of 10, right?
Yeah.
So I want to say they'll give it a 6.5 because I feel like they didn't like it for some reason, but they should have liked it because it's unique in a sense.
True.
Not amazing, but it's unique.
They gave it a 7.7.
7.7.
And said, after a decade of searching for the intersection of hip-hop and country and a star turn on Cowboy Carter, the Virginia-born singer finds much more than a party on his third album. Okay. So, yeah. I mean, what did you think?
I mean, I would... you said it's his third album. Is that right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'd like to go back and see, but I think I've read somewhere that it's like a lot... He had more hip hop influences back in the day, and you mentioned it.
He definitely did. Yeah.
So may not like it as much. So this probably be the most Shaboozey that I can handle for now. We'll see. But I enjoyed it, man. Re-listenability for this is pretty high. Depending on the context, you know, I think obviously driving feels good to listen to music like this. Being outdoors, listen to being in groups of people that vibe with this type of music. I could really see that being a good atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
Again, being around a campfire, drinking with friends, you know, playing beer pong, listening to this type. This is like if we were in high school and this came out, shit, this thing would probably
be all over that
really,
shit.
Yeah, I could really see a lot of people getting along with this. But for me, right now, this gets a 7 out of 10. You know,
all right,
definitely.
That's fair.
I was thinking lower, but you know, I don't want to do that to Shaboozey because I had a good time listening to it. And you know, in his defense, like he needs any, I just listened to it yesterday and today, so it's still really fresh and it hasn't settled in with me yet. But I had a good time going back to it. So yep, solid 7.
Nice. Yeah, I obviously I'm gonna go super high. It's a 9 for me. It's not a perfect 10, but like. Man, I've been rinsing this album to death, and I'm still not.
Steal Her last night.
Yeah, if you would have played it, it would have been a 10 for sure. But I've been I've been running it into the ground, man. And I'm still not tired of it, and I think there's a new song on it that I like every time I listen to it. You know, I like more. So I think that'll change over time. Which song I pick as my favorite. And we really need to start doing with these newer albums. We need to revisit them like a year later and see what has changed. That's an idea we can keep in the back pocket. But yeah, definitely. I got a 9 right now. So
you know, I think these like Shaboozey to me, like going through this album, he doesn't strike me as a hip hop artist. Doesn't strike me as a country artist necessarily. More like a singer songwriter. You know, Post Malone, I wish would do this too. Along with Shaboozey is like take a page out of Tracy Chapman's playbook, you know, and like go create, but don't be defined by any lanes, you know. And I think this album really does that to a point, right? But then again, there's some stereotypical country songs that you play the instrumentals and you could guess, is this a Shania Twain song? Is this a Tim McGraw? You know, it's like it's there. The blueprint is there for this type of music, but I really just want to hear him with a guitar expressing himself. Like, give me bare bones, stripped down Shaboozey, and like that's where you're really going to catch me. But from a mainstream standpoint, I think this album probably is going to be successful if it hasn't been determined that way already.
Yeah,
but yeah,
for sure.
Nice. Good.
Hell yeah. Well, yeah, that was Where I've Been Isn't Where I'm Going by Shaboozey. If you're a country fan, even if you're just a music fan, man, go listen to it. Let us know what you think, because I was pleasantly surprised when I went into the album. So,
Yeah,
but with that being said, let's get into Rides or Dies. So you lead us. Actually, should we lead with Trey's?
Yeah, I agree. Yep, let's go with Trey's.
All right. So Trey's Ride or Dies is Tie My Hands by Lil Wayne. And so for those of you that don't know, after Katrina hit New Orleans, obviously Wayne is from New Orleans. And this is a song with Robin Thicke off the Carter 3. And it's essentially about the city's struggle after Katrina and his thoughts on it. Very emotional song. And there's a lot of lines that are great in here, but you can tell that he was in pain, right, for his city. And I think that, you know, people in this country right now are experiencing a similar emotions, you know, with their city and things that have happened to them. So I don't know. I'm sure Trey would have more to say, and he may have more to say when he gets back. But it's a hard ride for me. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a rides, you know, and with Hurricane Katrina doing what it did, you know, it impacted me a lot personally, from my family being from New Orleans, myself, family being down there, but and Tuscaloosa's tornado. I mean, like these events that happen, you know, to a city and to a community. You know, I mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast, but like, it is tragic, and there is a lot of downside to a situation like this. People lose resources, people lose lives, people lose family members and pets and houses and material goods. But like, what comes out of it is unity. What comes out of it, I mean, 9/11 is a great example of it. You know, I mean, it's like out of tragedy comes, you know, unification, and can come a lot of good. You know, rebuilding, it's not ideal, but things typically do shine a little better once you come out of these situations. So right now everyone's in the throes of it, you know, so it's obviously easy to say, but they got our support, and the community is pulling together in a beautiful way. So very, very, a lot of hope for what's to come out of this situation.
Yeah. I do want to say, so the third verse of the song says, I knock on the door, hope isn't home, fate's not around, the luck's all gone. Don't ask me what's wrong, ask me what's right, and I'm going to tell you what's life. And did you know I lost everything, but I ain't the only one. First came the hurricane and then the morning sun. Excuse me if I'm on one, and don't trip if I light one. I walk a tight one. They try to tell me keep my eyes open. My whole city's underwater. Some people still floating, and they wonder why black people still voting, because your president's still choking. Take away the football team, the basketball team, and all you got is me to represent New Orleans. No governor, no help from the mayor, just a steady beating heart and a wish and a prayer. Which is so fucking good and so powerful. And Wayne, like, people forget Wayne can do that, man. One of the best ever. So fucking good.
But the only thing that is weird about that statement is Lil Wayne is a Packers fan, right?
It's true. He is a Packers fan. He is a Packers fan.
He'll still bleed black and gold, but like, I don't know about that green and yellow, Lil Wayne.
Yeah.
We're trying to get you in the Super Bowl, right?
True.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you got for your Rides or Dies?
All right. So my Rides or Dies is a throwback track from the 60s, Diane Warwick. The song is called What the World Needs Now. This song to me wasn't intended to reflect over the situation in Asheville and on the East Coast, but it does, you know, indirectly reference that. But I saw the Joker film last night with Lady Gaga.
Really?
Oh yeah, and
I'm not going to see that shit, so you'll have to tell me how it is.
Why? Why wouldn't you?
I'm not gonna go see a fucking musical, man. I'm sorry. Like,
what is wrong?
The fact that like DC finds a way to shoot themselves in the foot like so regularly, and it's almost impressive. Like, it is almost a talent. Like, they finally had a successful movie, right? Like, they finally had Joker, and it was like widely regarded. Critics, fans, everybody was like, yes, this is fucking awesome. And they're like, you know what we should do for the second one? Make it a fucking musical. Like, why? Why would they do that?
That, I guarantee, is not the process. The process is how to tell this story, right? And the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix is highlighting this Arthur Fleck human character
right? With a lot of flaws and a lot of mental illness and a lot of crazy shit. So there's like this massive psychological effect that's happening throughout this movie, both movies, right? It's just another take on this story. And you got to see it, Blake, to have that full opinion, because it's not what you're thinking. It's not what you're thinking.
I really don't want to. And Anthony, and I hate to tell you this, but like, everybody is talking about how bad this movie is. Like every time I look on the internet, I just see people talking about how bad it is and how mad they are. It's a musical.
Listen, what is bad? First off, this is not a quote musical. You can't put it in the same lane as The Sound of Music, or Mary Poppins or whatever you think a musical is, because like it's not that. The way music is delivered throughout this movie is so fucking interesting, because like, I mean, like, When the Saints Go Marching In is featured in this movie in like 5 different ways, right? Early on, and like there is, again, so many elements psychologically that is happening throughout this movie. I'm trying to be mindful about what I say, because there are things throughout this movie that need to be experienced, right? But like, if you go in with that mindset, or if like 2 guys walking out of the movie last night were so pissed out loud verbally, but they wanted to see fucking Batman movie, they wanted to see fucking action, but like, this is a mental headspace that you're going into.
But like I don't even think that you can't even assume they wanted that, because the first Joker is not like that. It's not a Batman movie. It's not violent. It's not like, they were probably expecting not a musical. That is probably what they were expecting, and they were probably mad that there was a musical. That's what I'm assuming.
We can't speculate on their speculations, because we just keep going, right? But like, if you saw the first Joker, you saw Todd Phillips putting something out there that was not typical, comic book movie, I guess is the best way to phrase it. But like, you're stepping into the mental headspace of the Joker's character. And now you have this other element, which is Lady Gaga doing Harley Quinn, a totally different take on Harley Quinn and the Joker, but like, the delivery for me works, being open to a new take on this storyline is very interesting. And it takes a lot of balls, but like, there is always going to be haters for it. But if you go in thinking, oh gosh, then yeah, it's going to fucking deliver that, because that's what you're wanting. But like, if you go in saying, we just have to take what the director's putting out there, it can have an impact. Now, this song is not What the World Needs Now, which is Love, is not featured in the film at all. But like, I left the movie with that, with the song in my head, right? I mean, there's okay, let me ask you, Blake. So is a musical to you songs that are created for a movie that are sung, or is a musical a movie that showcases songs you might recognize?
It's either one of them. It doesn't matter.
Either one.
Any.
There's no musicals that you enjoy or like or gravitate towards.
I mean, I like the Bob's Burgers movie, which was a musical.
Yeah.
But apart
what
from
about
that,
Team America?
That
or
is
the South Park movie. Those are both musicals, right?
That was South Park movie. The problem with South Park is there's like 9 movies essentially.
No. The South Park movie.
And shit.
No, there's one South Park movie. It's called Bigger, Longer, Uncut.
Yeah, but this is and I don't understand. We're getting sidetracked. Anyway, in terms of the song,
more musicals coming your way, folks.
I'm not Anthony. I will not watch. I'll give you one. If you're gonna bring one, I'll give you one that I will watch. You have to pick it, and you have to be very conscious.
Not how this works around here, folks. No, but here's the thing. Like I said, of musicals, this movie, if you were to percentage-wise, right, maybe 15% of like actual singing, maybe 10% of actual singing, but like, think about this Joker character, right? He's music is in his head constantly. He's dancing constantly. He's a frantic, it's like, you have to step into his mind to really take in this movie. And I encourage you to take that mindset, and that's how you watch it, because you need to see it to have that take on it. And if you see it and you're like, I get what you're saying, but it just didn't work for me, I get it. That's what these, this kind of like breakdowns are for. But like, I'm so glad to have seen it last night and to talk about it right now, because I knew it was gonna get emotional, right? There's a lot of feelings for this, right? But it's worth seeing on a big screen, loud music. But like, don't let people next to you bother you. Don't let people on the internet bother you. Go in and then come out with your opinion, and then we talk about it, right?
Well, I'm giving the song a ride because I do enjoy the song, and I think it's important for this moment.
Forgot what
Now,
segment we were in.
yeah, for the Joker, we'll see.
We will see.
So for my song, I chose "Trey the Truth in Ibiza" by J. Cole off of Might Delete Later, and the reason I picked it is a certain line, and let me find it so I don't fuck it up. So he says in the third verse, or is it the second verse? Technically, the second verse. Thank God for my boy Ebe. What would I do with no team? I wouldn't do anything. I would just sit on this music and hold it, waiting for some perfect moment, wondering why it ain't came. Meanwhile, the world done changed. Some of these songs I was loving last year don't feel the same. Somebody feel my pain. And the reason I like that line in particular, I love the whole song. Like, I love the vibe of this song. But what he's saying in that, like, Might Delete Later was a compilation of songs that J. Cole has created in the striving towards this album, The Fall Off, that he wants to be like his perfect album. And I think like Might Delete Later is a culmination of songs that he had banked and had probably told himself for years or months or weeks or whatever it was, like, the right moment will come for this. And then that moment never came, right? And I'm sure with him, with artists, hip-hop artists, other artists all over the world, all throughout time, they've thought, you know, I like this song. It's not good enough for an album. It's not good enough to be a single. Like, I'm going to bank and I'm not going to release it. I mean, we see this after artists die, things of that nature. So I just really like that line because it's basically him saying, like, there is no perfect moment for that song, right? I'm going to think it's this point in time, then a year's going to pass, and I'm going to wonder, why didn't I release it at that point? You know, and I just like, I really, really like that line specifically to kind of just give you a little introspection into how, like, his thought process is with releasing this album in particular. So I just found it really interesting. But what did you think?
I mean, the beat and the music behind the lyrics is
Very smooth, very sick.
and I really enjoyed that. The lyrics, I only listened to it one time, and
I didn't know what the direction of the song, I didn't know where it was going. So like, I thought at first, I'm like, is this a Trey the True diss track? You know, I mean, like, is this a diss album? I had no idea. And then obviously Trey is featured towards the end of it. So it just really took me time to process. And I was really indifferent
on the lyrics themselves, you know, I couldn't tell if he was coming from this ego position or not. But I give the song a rides. Like I said, primarily because that production behind it, you know, and I don't have a lot of that context of his previous albums and things like that are
Right.
really elevate the lyrics, I think, a lot. So from an outside perspective, I would be turned off by the vocals. Shining light on it, it definitely means a lot more. But yeah, so it rides.
Nice.
It rides.
Cool. All right, so now, Anthony, we have to talk about MaXXXine, and I didn't write it on Letterboxd yet because I didn't want you to see it. And
I appreciate that.
Tell us a little bit, for those who don't know, let me tell you something before Anthony goes on however long this spiel is about to be. Anthony is a Ty West, Mia Goth, X trilogy stan, okay? So the trilogy is Pearl, X, and MaXXXine. So started with X, Pearl was released afterwards as a prequel, and then MaXXXine is the sequel to X. And yeah, I don't know. Tell us, Anthony's been on this train for a long time. His typical, like, the way he wants you to watch this movie is to watch X and Pearl like 9 times and then go watch MaXXXine 6 times and then you can form your opinion. So Anthony, tell us a little bit about your journey, your MaXXXine journey.
Yeah. So when X first came out in theaters, I obviously got to see it having no context of it. And there's a post-credits scene in X which announces Pearl coming out soon, coming out in the fall of that same year.
It was a secret. It was like a secret they kept.
It was a secret project, and Pearl and X were filmed during the pandemic in New Zealand, I believe. And they were able to use the same crew from Avatar to film Pearl and X. I'm pretty sure now that I say Avatar out loud, it feels weird, but the skeleton crew of some film that was already out there shooting, they got to use them and do Pearl while they were there. So Pearl and Pearl and X, first two films, if they were successful, then that was going to enable them to do MaXXXine. And they were. So then MaXXXine gets announced, and each of these films has their own genre blending kind of angle to it. You know, X has this Texas Chainsaw Massacre like grit to it. Pearl has this Technicolor psychological craziness to it, darkness to it. And then MaXXXine has its own lane. You know, MaXXXine really highlights a lot of what they call giallo filmmaking. You know, there's a lot of leather. There's a lot of who is the killer type of thing. There's a lot of practical effects in giallo type of films, and this one just hits it right over the head over and over. You know, and these movies are like the trilogy itself is such a take on filmmaking as a whole. You know, all of these porn filmmaking too, you know,
True.
which is interesting. There's a line in X that says, you know, we're trying to make a good porn, a good dirty movie or something like that.
Yeah.
And all three of these movies are that, you know, so like they're super well done, beautifully edited. The music within the films are great. The score is great. And I think MaXXXine being a more like Pearl and X are very compact as far as like they're based on a farm, and Pearl kind of ventures into the city a little bit, but MaXXXine is, you know, all over Hollywood, you know, so there's a way to portray Hollywood, and then the way that this film kind of portrays this underbelly like angle of Hollywood too. There's references throughout all three of these films that intertwine together. I mean, like my notebook has just got lines going here and X circled over here, you know, and it's just such a fun puzzle to put together because
the dance at the beginning of MaXXXine, throwback
right?
to Pearl. Nice.
Pearl's audition, you know.
Yep.
I mean, the goose that MaXXXine does the coke out of, you know, reference to Pearl's goose from back. I mean, like it doesn't end, you know. And I just watched it again today, and like, I mean, you're noticing things throughout the movie, you know. I mean, the detective says to MaXXXine, you know, you really do have the devil in you, girl, you know, and that when you watch Max, you've only seen it once. I'm just assuming you've only seen it once, right?
Yeah.
So. Spoiler alert for people who haven't listened, it's out, go watch it. The killer in giallo films is almost always the most likely suspect, and in this film, you know, the killer turns out to be her dad, right? And you realize after watching it a second time all the hints throughout. So like the beginning of the movie, there's a peep show scene where the guy is gripping the banister, breaks the banister, and upon first watch, you might think, or I thought, this is somebody with just a lot of sexual rage, you know, who's just lusting after this girl. Then you watch it again, you realize it's her dad fucking losing his mind because his daughter's, you know, doing this, right? So like, there's so many little hints like that, yeah, you can look at it and say, oh, it was clear the whole time it was her dad, but like, was it, you know, or was it meant to be? I mean, and again, all the nods to filmmaking, you know, Theta Barra's Hollywood star,
right?
The alligator from
Theta
Pearl and X, yeah, you know. So I mean, there's just all these little nuances that I like can't help but just like, God, dude, this is so fucking cool to just keep going deeper and deeper into their world. So I mean, I could go on for days about the practical effects and the shots that are beautifully done. And again, the score, I love the score for all three of these films. The Puritan head credit scene.
Yeah.
You know, MaXXXine's opening monologue is so dark and twisted.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen the devil, you know.
Yeah. It's such a good reference to X too, you know, like it really was great.
I mean, I love the writing, so I don't want to. I'll get off the soapbox and let you. I'm interested to hear your opinions and thoughts because you've been on this journey, and I'm so glad you got to finally get some closure on this. Whether you wanted it or not, you got it. So let's hear it. What'd you think?
So I will say, first off, Mia Goth is a superstar, man, and she is is perfect in these movies, and she carries these movies. And first off, her normal voice is very fucking jarring.
So British.
Yeah, and like she sounds like a fucking haunted baby doll, but her southern accent is really funny.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. But Mia Goth is she's a star, man. She's a queen, and she is the highlight of these movies. But I will say, and I'm interested, like, your take on it. And I already know what your answer is going to be. Like, you're not going to take a hard stance on this, but to me, MaXXXine is the weakest of the three movies. And I have a feeling that the Anthony response is going to be, look, they all bring their own thing. You know, it's all everything. But like, to me, X is like, I love those slasher type movies. Like, it's violent, it's scary, it's weird. Like, it's the perfect horror movie to me. Like, I love Jason movie, like Friday the 13th movies. I love Scream. Like, I like slashers, right? Like, that's the type of horror movie I enjoy, and X is very much that.
Right.
Pearl is very psychologically just unnerving, and it's strange. And like I think Mia shines the most in Pearl because a lot of it is just her reaction to things, the way that she acts. Like, she's so fucking crazy in that movie. Like, it really, like, I don't know. I think I liked Pearl upon second watch more than I liked it the first time. But with MaXXXine, I don't know. I was just I feel like the past two movies, they had kind of like a certain moment or a certain factor like that popped out and made it like, oh, I like this movie. And I was waiting for it with MaXXXine, and I felt like it never came. It was like, to me, a movie that failed to find its footing. And like, the references, I thought the references are great, and I thought Mia Goth was phenomenal per usual, right? And I thought that who's the guy that plays her agent? He's also the guy in Breaking Bad.
Oh, I don't know his name. I know his name is Teddy
MaXXXine
in the movie, but
cast. Hang on. It's Guillermo. Giancarlo Esposito. Yeah. He's fucking hilarious, and he's so good in the movie. But like, I don't know. There just wasn't a moment that really like sucked me in and made me like feel the way that Pearl and X made me feel at different moments. You know, like the climax, the act 3 of X is so wild. There's so much happening, and like, I don't know, like MaXXXine was, I thought like it finished, and Amanda and I watched it together, and I was like, it was all right. You know, like, I liked it, and I liked the moments of it, and I love the costumes, I love the scenery, I love the sets. Like, I like so much about it, but I don't know, it didn't have that pop that I wanted. And I don't know if that, like, if it's something that's my fault for expecting it, or if it's just like the past two movies were at that level to where, like, now that I've sat on them for a long time, I hold them in a higher regard than I did upon initially watching them, especially Pearl. Because when I finished Pearl at first, I was like, I don't enjoy this movie. Like, it was very slow, but upon second rewatch and letting it like marinate, I realized like this is a good movie in the sense that Mia Goth, like, she carries that film and brings such a weird horror aspect to it. And I don't know, MaXXXine just didn't have that moment. I'm glad that we got closure. I'm glad they got to make that film. I'm glad that there was like kind of an ending to it. But yeah, to me, like, it was, if I were to put a rating on it, it was probably like a 3 out of 5. You know, whereas X and Pearl are probably 4 and 5s out of 5s to me. So that's kind of where I stand with it.
I mean, I think it's fair, but I think it's also should be taken into account that like Pearl and X were made in a vacuum, you know, and I think that when you have constraints like that, being the pandemic, being location, being low number of cast members, like, you're almost pressured into making boom X and making Pearl boom. So it's like, that is how you can make things within the parameters, and it just explodes into something that's a creative masterpiece, right? And then when you start to branch out into bigger sets and bigger themes and bigger genres too, you know, it's going to get divisive. And I think that I agree, Pearl and X are stronger than MaXXXine, but MaXXXine is what was necessary for everyone, I think, to get that story closure. More notable cast members throughout this film get to showcase, you know, the director in no, not Ty, the female director in
Oh, yeah.
MaXXXine. I like her character a lot. You know? I mean, I thought she was going to be this twisted human, but really wasn't, right? I mean, really on MaXXXine's side for a lot of this movie. And I think that from Mia Goth's standpoint, she really shines in Pearl. And X, she's a beautiful character in X. And in MaXXXine, she is herself, but like she's letting other people shine. I think it wasn't such a focal point on MaXXXine, whereas Pearl was
just Pearl, basically.
It's a magnifying glass on her, and you watch her just go insane in real time, you know. And MaXXXine is also playing on the run in this movie a little bit, you know, like coming out of the tragedy of the massacre of X, now having cops interview her because of these other deaths, but her not knowing what they know about her because there's this person with the, you know, there's a lot of deeper psychological things happening with MaXXXine that I think kind of has her a little indecisive on what moves to make, right? And I think that this movie too, if you stopped it at 30 minutes left in the film before they go up on the escalator gondola thing, a lot of people are still on board at that point. I think a lot of people jumped off when the crazy shit started happening, the shootout at the pool and you know, the scene with her dad. It's like it starts to unravel and go crazy as all of the movies do in the last act. It just gets, I think it throws a lot of people off because of how like comedic it could be. Like it was Scarface like shootout, right?
Yeah.
And her dad, the character of her dad, I think can throw a lot of people off too, because he's got all this plastic surgery done, a fake tan. It's just very like weird. Now, I'll tell you this. I thought that whoever the killer was making a snuff film. You know what a snuff film is? It's like a killing of a human. I thought that was the direction it was going. And then like I thought all the girls had been filmed getting murdered, and that was going to be what was going to happen to MaXXXine. And I think that angle would have delivered equally as well, you know, maybe even more so. But the twist on her dad was an interesting take, and I think it was this kind of full circle thing. And then when you look back, everything still makes sense. It's just, in comparison to Pearl and X, I think it is the lowest of the three, but it's by no means a bad movie. It might lose some steam, you know, with some people if you compare them. But like, I mean, I was really happy with it. And Ty West, you know, for writing this whole thing in 2 years, you know, that's remarkable. Right? Yeah. And I think these movies are something that we'll be able to look back on and from a filmmaking standpoint and pull out elements, you know, like they name drop a lot of things throughout these films, like different like this is the VHS era of film versus, you know, 8mm, and then the Technicolor stuff, the projectionists from Pearl, you know. So it's like every era is being highlighted, and again, it feels good to watch it. And like I could see myself spending a day, you know, a year going back into this trilogy. And on that note, A24 has these novels that have come out. X just got released last week, and the details in these books are I've been waiting on a screenplay to come out, but this is better because you get into the heads of the characters even more so. So the X novelization is out now. Pearl is coming out, I think, in November, and then MaXXXine will come out in the beginning of next year.
Nice.
So,
hell yeah.
Still more rabbit holes to go down in this trilogy. Just when you thought it was done.
Of course.
So, glad you got to watch it, man.
Of course, and I'll definitely revisit MaXXXine. I still need to revisit. I revisited Pearl before I did X, so I need to go back and watch X again. But yeah, you know, shout out Ty West. He made something very creative, very different, very great, and he's also married to my wife, Alice in Wonderland, who I love very much. So, but all right, so next week we will plan on still Billy Strings and Sound of Metal. So everybody be prepped for that. But other than that, Anthony, great time as always. Thank you for joining, my friend. And we'll be back hopefully with Trey next week.
We'll see. Peace.